Okay, Sarah, whatever will be, will be. Are the Bears going to Wembley? Well, after Sunday's win in the third round of a Challenge Cup, they're closer than they've ever been. We were there to see it, and we've got all the reaction and analysis for you. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bare Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bare Necessities, the podcast all about the Coventry Bears. We live online at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever else you get your audio from. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me as always is my co-pilot and former Bears player, Craig Cathcart. Craig, how did you enjoy Sunday, and how much fun has it been watching the game back on the iPlayer since?
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I had a fantastic day Sunday, going in the very cold but sunny day, watching the Bears and then watching it back later. It was a good weekend of sport for me. Liverpool won. The Bears obviously won, which was the highlight, obviously. And Ireland beat Wales as well. So not often those three all win in the same weekend.
Yes, I had the Bears and Villa, but sadly I support Wales. So, yeah, 2 out of 3 for me. But not bad. So, coming up on this week's show, we've got all the reaction analysis from Sunday, including an interview with Bears head coach Tom Tsang. We'll look ahead to round 4 of the Challenge Cup, where the Bears have been drawn at home to Pilkington Rex. We'll touch on this weekend's visit to the Butts Park Arena of the York City Knights. There are more of your AskMrC questions, and we've got a quite brilliant competition for you. But first, Sunday, and the Bears' home tie against Distington, whose name we've been pronouncing incorrectly the whole time. Sorry about that for anyone from Distington. So that was in the third round of a Challenge Cup. A game, of course, it was streamlined on the BBC. It was the Bears' first ever home match in the competition, and for about an hour or so, it was without doubt as tough as we'd expected. Distington were clearly up for it. They tackled hard and they weren't afraid to move the ball around. Although, to be honest, you could say the same things about the Bears as well. So the Cumbrian side actually took the lead after 10 minutes with a penalty in front of the sticks before the Bears hit back 7 minutes later with a try. It started with a penalty 10 metres out from the Distington line. Ben Stead did a very clever give and go before slipping in Harry Chapman for an easy touchdown, and Stead converted to make it 6-2. However, the visitors scored a try of their own 10 minutes later. Dante Morley-Samuels misjudged a high kick and wasn't able to gather, and the Cumbrian side ran in from 30 metres for a converted score to go back in front. But there was no reason to panic. It was all just a good, close cup game, and Bears regained the lead just after the half hour. Jason Bass getting on the end of a great kick from Stead to score, and Stead converted again. And then right before half-time, Bears bagged another, again through Jason Bass. This time it came from a Paul Emanuele kick on the last tackle, which the Distington winger completely fluffed and let Bass in for the finish. And Stead's conversion made it 18-8 to the Bears at half-time. The second half was, broadly speaking, much more comfortable for the Bears, who would eventually add another 4 tries to their tally, but not before Distington clawed themselves back to within a score, again through a Bears error. This time it was Harry Chapman who made a mess of a kick on his own line and didn't quite react fast enough to stop the visitors scoring. The conversion was missed though, and it carried on being a contest for the next 10 minutes, although you did start to see the Bears' superior fitness shine through, and so it proved in the end, underlined with a brutal 6-minute period where they scored 3 tries. So first it was Chris Barrett. He finished after some really soft hands close to the line from Ben Stead. Then Lewis Lord got the try that his efforts deserved after a cracking break and pass from Jason Bass even. And then completing the trio of tries was Hayden Freeman, who finished in the corner after a good run and pass from Kieran Sherratt. And Ben Stead converted all 3 of those tries to make it 36-12 to the Bears. And there was time for one more before the game was out. Harry Chapman bagged his second, running in from halfway after initial burst from Jason Bass put him away. Stead converted yet again to keep his 100% record for the afternoon and make the final score Bears 42, Distington 12, putting the Bears into round 4 of a Challenge Cup for the first time in their history. We'll chat a bit more about that game shortly, but first, here's what Bears head coach Tom Tsang had to say about it. Okay, so Tom, job done, through to round 4 of the Challenge Cup for the first time in the club's history, as far as I'm aware. You must be pleased to have got through that. It was a tough test.
Yeah, fantastic to get the result there, and the scoreboard ticked over in the second half. So I'm happy with the way that we performed in the second half. Credit to the Distington team. They didn't give up, and they really they brought the physicality that we were expecting. So they didn't let us down on that side of it. They probably moved the ball around a little bit more than a lot of amateur clubs might have done as well. That you sort of your stereotypical through the middle. They certainly weren't that. So they did test us a couple of times on edges, but yeah, really happy that we managed to rack up the points in the second half and get through. It's really good.
I guess that score just before half time as well felt like a really crucial one, because you knew you were in a battle in that first half. Distington didn't go away, and sure, their scores were probably, if we're being fair, from Bears' errors, but they weren't going anywhere until that one just before half time.
Yeah, what we talked about was that we should have the better fitness, we should have the better conditioning. Being the semi-pro team, we would back ourselves on that side of it. So we talked about not panicking if we were even or level after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. That we would just to stick to our structures, stick to our processes, and make sure that we backed that side of things, and that we would come good in the last whatever period of time it turned out to be. And that, to be fair, that proved fairly accurate at the end. But I must admit, in the first half, I wasn't happy with our completion rate. We dropped a lot of ball and made a lot of errors, which I think kept Distington interested and in the game in the first half, and just sort of kept that pressure on us. So I think if we were playing a team from our division with the error count that we had, we probably would have been a little bit behind on the scoreboard at half time. So we're well aware of that, and we need to fix that up for next week, going back into the league against York. Any sort of errors like that, and they'll really make it count and punish us. So we know that we've got a lot of work to do. Defensively, we were better. They had 2 tries, but they were both off kicks and off errors from kicks. So they're things that are sort of individual that we can try and look at and fix up. But we didn't really get broken down defensively, so fairly happy with that. Again, lots of things to improve, but just happy to get through.
And a quick word, I know you don't necessarily like to focus on individuals in these chats, but a quick word has to go to Ben Stead, your number 7 today, man of the match. He was our man of the match by a long way, and the BBC cameras seem to agree with us. Just really smart kicking game, immaculate from the tee as well. You must be pleased with how quickly he's settled in and how quickly he's come in and been able to boss the team around the park.
Yeah, Ben's a great lad. He's a really nice lad. He's really coachable. He listens to what people say, but he's also got his own ideas, and he's got a bit of creativity, and he brings that on the field. I think him and Paul are really starting to build together. Obviously, this is only their second game, or third if you include the Leeds game, together. As a half-back pairing, so that's only going to improve and get better as we go forward. It was never going to be fantastic, all singing, all dancing right from the first game. So we know that we've got a decent benchmark with those two as a combination. So that'll only improve. I think as well. I think there was a couple of other standouts. I thought Dante in the centres got through a hell of a lot of work and was always a threat. I thought that Dan Gover started to run a little bit better with the ball, but I personally would have given the man of the match to Lewis Lord at 9, who played 80 minutes and defensively was very, very good, and also tested them with the ball as well. So I think Lewis with Ben and Paul, that little triangle of creative players should start to evolve into something pretty good for us.
So we've got another big week coming up. Obviously, you've already mentioned back to league action next week and a visit of York City Knights, and obviously Challenge Cup 4th round draw in the week as well. So I guess 2 questions to finish. What are you looking for from your side in terms of when York are in town next week, and then who do you fancy getting in round 4?
So first question, I think we need to keep building and keep improving. Like I said just then, it was never going to be a polished team, having brought so many new guys together right at the start of the season. We knew we had to build into it. We knew we had to work together and keep improving each week. So just further incremental improvements defensively and in attack. More so defensively. We know that we need to be really, really improved from the last league game against Doncaster. And just holding on to the ball, we know that if we can complete and have our fair share of sets in possession, that we'll be competitive with any team, as long as we can defend off the back of it. But That's the main thing, is just making sure that we hold onto the ball and can defend for 80 minutes. In terms of who we get, again, I don't know exactly I haven't seen the results from today, so I don't know exactly who's through. A home game again would be nice. Failing that, a big team would be useful as well.
This is around where the championship sides come in, isn't it? So Toronto at home, that has a nice ring to it.
Yeah, any of those top end teams would be great. Like I say, a home game first and foremost would be the top of the wish list. But other than that, your Bradfords, your Lees, Torontos would be nice.
Great. Well, Tom, enjoy the win and see you next week.
Thanks very much.
So, Craig, the Bears got the job done, and watching it back again, it never really looked in doubt, did it?
No, but I won't lie. I did think the Bears would have enough to beat Distington. I didn't think that, I thought they'd pull away in the second half. I think on our last show I said that would probably happen, but I was a little bit concerned just because of the poor result the week before away at Doncaster. I didn't know quite how the Bears might react to that. I thought they'd probably be a bit nervy to begin with. It's always hard to come back from a defeat like that. And they were a bit nervous early on. There was one or two errors creeping in the first half. There was a few occasions where they didn't complete their sets. And it allowed Distington to stay in the game, really. But, they absolutely deserved to be in the game up to sort of 50, 60 minutes. They were absolutely superb. I mean, their pack, ran really hard. Defensively, they were good. The one thing I have to really say the Bears did well in the first half was defensively. They were tackling in 3s and 4s. The line was good. Distington put the Bears under a lot of pressure. There was a few repeat sets near the line, and the Bears held out, and they got more confident as the game went on, and you could really tell that in the second half. There was players who really came to the fore in the second half. Also, the Bears bench. I thought the guys that came on did superbly well. Distington was starting to tire a bit, and those guys really, really made a difference in the second half. But it was a really good day. I think when Distington came back into it at 18-12, we were just umming and ahhing a little bit, but the guys reacted really well and came back into it. And both Distington tries were from Bears errors, but defensively all day the Bears were sound. It was a really good day. Really good day.
Yeah, and as Tom said in his post-match interview, this is only the third match if you count the Leeds game, but second competitive game that this team has played together. These combinations are still coming together. There's still players finding their feet at the club. One such new player who has settled in very quickly and had an outstanding game on Sunday was Ben Stead. Perfect from the kicking tee and bossed the team around the pitch, really. I mean, we talked during the game that we thought he was our standout player. The BBC seemed to agree with us as well. He really did step up to the occasion, didn't he?
He's a kicking machine, isn't he? I mean, there was several of those were from the touchline, and there was a couple of times the kicks didn't look particularly orthodox, but they flew over through the middle every time, and that's actually, I'm contemplating afterwards. It's something. While the Bears have always had decent kickers since going into League One, there was a couple of occasions last year where there was really close games and and kicks had been missed during the game, and I think it makes all the difference. When you're scoring a try and it turns into 6 points every time, it makes a huge difference. And the Doncaster game the week before, they pretty much kicked every single kick, and it's demoralising as well when you're conceding 6 every time. So, that was huge. His all-round play, though, was just superb. Him and Paul Emanuele are linking up well together. But not only that, you can see the other combinations coming in as well. He's linking up well with the centres, with the second rows. Also, Lewis Lord is building up a good relationship with those two guys. So, it was really, really He was really impressive. And you can actually see from the Doncaster game to this game, I know the opposition's different, and Doncaster were a really, really good team, blew the Bears away, but you can see the difference actually just in a couple of games. All these combinations starting to work and players playing with a bit more confidence. And that comes from Ben. He's an experienced player, and he's come through the ranks at Keighley, I think. So he's a very, very good player, and the Bears have done really well to sign him this year. I think he'll make a big difference.
Definitely. So that result on Sunday, that meant that the Bears progressed to round 4 of the Challenge Cup for the first time ever. And about an hour before we started recording this episode, the draw was made. And as we said at the top of the show, the Bears were drawn at home again to an amateur side again, this time Pilkington Rex. Craig, I know. I guess part of us would have loved to have had one of the big teams from the Championship come to the Butts Park Arena, but not wanting to get ahead of ourselves, but looking at the fact that round 5 sees some Super League teams come in, the Bears have got home tie, and it's a winnable home tie. What do you think to that as a draw?
Yeah, it would have been nice to get one or two of the big teams. I wanted Toronto or Bradford, but if you don't get those teams, then it's great to get a winnable game. The Bears won't underestimate Pilkington at all, and I'm not expecting for 1 minute that it's going to be an easy game. But it is definitely a winnable game, and the players will definitely be up for it, and it's a real opportunity to get through to the next round. The Bears, we'll probably go into more detail ahead of the game, but the Bears have a history against Pilkington in the old National Conference 3 days. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a really good day. I'm really looking forward to another home game as well, and you just can't beat that. So
yeah, well, we'll explore that history, as you say, a bit nearer the time. So the 4th round of the Challenge Cup, the game's taking place over the weekend of the 17th and 18th of March. Obviously the draw's only been made, like I say, an hour or so before we're recording this episode, so no date has been picked yet, but as soon as we know, we'll talk about it on the podcast. Really good result from Sunday, and the Bears have already made history in terms of how far they've got in the Challenge Cup in their 20th anniversary year. Real good chance to get one round further, so all good stuff. And we should also say congratulations to Ollie Osborne for winning the crossbar challenge at half time. According to Dave Woods, just before he did the draw, that's the first ever winner of the crossbar challenge.
Really?
So congratulations to him. I hope he has a good day out at Wembley in August. And who knows, he might even be watching Bears. You never know. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, and I missed it as well. I went to the bar to get a pint, and I came back, and everyone was saying some guy got the crossbar challenge, and I didn't believe anyone.
Well, if you're able to re-watch the draw on BBC Sport, they've got mobile phone footage of it from directly behind him, and you can just see the ball floating and just dropping perfectly onto the bar. It's worth seeking out just for that. Okay, so still to come, we're going to look ahead to this weekend's Betfred League One match at home to the York City Knights, and we've got a bunch of Your AskMrC questions, but first, we're going to stick with the Challenge Cup just for a little longer because we've got a very, very cool competition for you. So, Bears CEO Alan Robinson, very kindly on Sunday, he handed us one of the match balls from the game for us to give away as a prize. So it's an official Challenge Cup match ball. It's all been cleaned and it's been signed by the entire Bears squad from Sunday's game. It's very cool. I know the Bears official Twitter feed had another one of these balls to give away. So if you weren't lucky enough to win that, then there is a second chance through your favourite podcast. I kind of want to enter the competition myself, but I won't do that because that would be cheeky. However, you listening, you definitely can. All you need to do is just use the contact form at covbearspodcast.com and send us a message, or just email direct to covbearspodcast@gmail.com and you'll be in the hat. No question to answer or anything like that. Just let us know you want in and you will be in So that's either covbearspodcast@gmail.com or use the contact form on our website, which is covbearspodcast.com. We'll probably stick it up on Twitter at some point as well, and make it even easier for you to enter. And we'll run it for a couple of weeks, and maybe look at presenting the winner with the ball at the next home game, not this weekend, but the next home game after York, which will be the next round of a Challenge Cup. So that will be all appropriate branding and everything. So yes, good luck with that. Just drop us an email, let us know you fancy winning that signed match ball from Sunday, and it might be you. Okay, so Craig, I think it's time to quiz you. Right, so this is AskMrC, the part of the show where I put your questions to my co-host, and this part of the show is sponsored by York's Tim, for which we are very, very grateful. If you've got something you'd like to ask Craig on a future episode, then don't be shy. Email us a question using the contact form at covbearspodcast.com, or tweet it to at covbearspodcast using the hashtag AskMrC. So we got 3 questions this week. First up for you, Craig, from Rachel Presley. She asks, which Bears player who played in Sunday's game has previously scored points in a Challenge Cup quarter-final? Now, I know you know the answer to this, and I will let you say it, but I also want to know, did you know the answer to this before hearing the BBC commentary talking about it on Sunday?
I did, because I did a bit of cheating. I searched on Google for previous results. It took a bit of time, actually, because it was from a few years back, but I had a sneaky feeling it was Benstead, just because he's related to Rachel, and obviously she's more likely to mention him. But yeah, so it was mentioned in the commentary as well. Apparently he did a 40-20 in that game as well, which is mightily impressive. I'm assuming he was quite young whenever he played that game. According to the match report, the Keighley boss played quite a few younger players for that game, to save the team for the league game, and actually the younger guys came in and did fantastically well, including a conversion from Ben. So quite an achievement, really, for a young player to come in on a Challenge Cup quarter final and actually score some points. So he did really well, and let's hope he gets to the quarterfinals again this year and has another opportunity.
Going to say a couple more wins and he gets a chance to better his score of 1 conversion. So yes, good knowledge there, even if you did cheat ever so slightly. But anyway, I'll let you off. So second up this week, it's another question from our lovely sponsor, York's Tim. Do you think there is any truth in the rumours that League One will be an amateur league in the future?
Who knows? For the last 18 months, 2 years, we've had various rumours going round. I have to say, usually there is a little bit of truth in the rumours that are out there. I believe this comes from the fact that there's been a change in structure mooted, which is that there will be a Super League One and a Super League Two with 10 teams in each league. There's also a rumour that the funding available will only be for those 2 leagues, that any leagues below that will not receive central funding. Currently, the Bears and all other League One teams receive funding, which is not a huge amount, it has to be said. And then the off the back of that, I guess people are thinking that if those teams if League One teams don't receive funding, then they'll just be amateur. So in effect, cutting them adrift and creating a structure in rugby league where there's only 20 full-time teams. Now, obviously, that's not going to be necessarily the case. There are clubs that bring in enough revenue to be able to pay players, but I find it quite an odd thing to do when, clearly the way forward for rugby league is expansion. There are new teams wanting to join the structure all the time. The current structure works well. You've had teams like Toulouse and Toronto come into the structure, into League One, and earn promotion, which is, in my view, the way it should be. As I said, compared to the budgets at Super League or even Championship level, the League One clubs receive very little money and very little support. Most League One clubs have to bring in other revenues. So to cut, a revenue stream from all the clubs would just be disastrous in my eyes. Rugby league will only flourish if there's a strong pyramid. And where are you going to get players coming from if there's only 20 clubs that are full time? Players will be lost to other sports. They'll be lost to rugby union. There's players will just look at, say all the League One clubs went amateur, or had to go amateur, then there's no pathway for players to come through and have an opportunity of playing a semi-pro or a pro level. It's just ridiculous in my eyes.
Yeah, and of course the whole restructure with League One, where the Bears came in 2015, was about League One being this developmental league for teams to get a proper footing in the game and help build that pyramid, as you say. And we've only just got to this season where teams have actually got a home and away schedule. So, but of course, it wouldn't be rugby league if there weren't rumours of people changing their minds every week. So, we'll have to see how that one pans out. But
League One, and if you look at League One in the Championship now, they're the strongest they've ever been. I think. The Championship has got an increased crowds this year. League One has, over the last couple of years, has seen increases in attendances. The standard is definitely going up. And there's you've seen a number of players actually come through in the London area that are now playing at Super League clubs. In 5-10 years time, if the Bears are still around, there'll be players coming through the system, and the Bears Academy, and moving up through the system and playing professional rugby league. You take that away, and then you lose that pathway for good.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, big question, big serious question. So it's probably a good thing that the last question this week is slightly more fun. Comes from Bears forward James Gertens, not John Aldridge, as the BBC had him on Sunday, I noticed in their coverage. But easy mistake to make. They're obviously very similar looking blokes, kind of. We'll just assume that the commentator got given the wrong numbers. We'll let him off. He doesn't watch them every week. So anyway, on to the question from Gertz. So he says, Craig, you've got to pick 3 former Bears players to come back and join this season's squad, but the Bears players you're picking have got to come from the previous semi-pro seasons, so 2015, 2016, 2017. And I went back and checked with him to see what he wanted, and he wants 1 from each year. So 1 from 2015, 1 from 2016, right. 1 from 2017. To join this season's squad.
I didn't actually see this question, so this.
Oh, you have to do it off the top of your head.
Yeah, off the top of my head. So
he wants to know who you're picking and why.
So I'll go back year by year and try and remember all of the players in the squad. So last year, so it's got to be Mikey Russell. He was superb last year. I'd love to see him back in a Bears shirt. Let's hope he does rejoin at some point this year. He was a real revelation last year, and he would really strengthen the current Bears lineup. So the year before that, I'm going to go for, because he played last year as well, but actually his best season was the year before that, when he was really on top of his game and really fit. I'm going to go for Jack Morrison from that year. He was superb that season. There was some games where, when he came on the field, he completely changed the whole game. His barnstorming runs, he was just, that season, I believe he was one of the best props in the league. So again, he would make a huge difference to the current Bears team. And the year before that, I'm going to have to have a quick look at the squad, possibly.
Go for it.
So I'm trying to think of players that were in that year. I think Jamal played that year, didn't he? And had a really good season. So Jamal Hunt, or I believe there was Eddie Medforth as well. He was really good that year, and Joel James as well was really good. So any of those players would make a difference. I'm going to go for that. My memory is a little bit hazy from that year. Says a lot when I can't remember 3 years ago. But yeah, that's who I'll go for.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there you have your answer, Gertz. Hope you approve. And there we have it. That's this week's AskMrC questions in the bag. Don't forget, if you've got something you want to ask, and it doesn't even have to be about rugby league if you don't want to, then do email them to us using the contact form at covbearspodcast.com, or tweet them to @covbearspodcast using AskMrC. And naturally, we are very grateful that AskMrC is sponsored by York's Tim. Right, we're nearly done for another episode, but not before we look ahead to this weekend's visit of the York City Knights, our first Betfred League One home match of the season, and as with the Doncaster game, a match against one of the teams many are expecting to be towards the top of the ladder come September and the end of the season. Craig, this season, in terms of the league, it doesn't get any easier, does it?
No, and there's a lot of these games against teams that are expected to be near the top of the table. We'll not know for probably another 7 or 8 matches actually who is going to be challenging and who's not. But York definitely will be up there. I mean, they ran Bradford all the way in their opening game in front of a huge crowd. They've signed some very good players. They're definitely a club on the up, and they've built year on year over the last couple of years. They will be a real threat. I mean, they had that historic game last year as well, where they drew against Toronto and
they
surprised
beat them,
everyone.
It was Keighley who drew.
Did they beat them?
It was York beat them.
Oh, it was York that beat them. Yeah, It was. I mean, a fantastic result for them, and they've got some really good players. I think they've actually got a couple of ex-Bears players playing for them. So that'll be interesting if they're in the squad.
Yeah, and I think York are one of those teams we should give a lot of credit to for how they've turned things around, because going into last season, there was a very real chance they wouldn't even exist. So I know the initial fixture list for 2017 didn't have any games against York on there because of the uncertainty. And yet they made the playoffs last year. As we said, they beat the Wolfpack. They've regularly proved themselves to be masters of match day marketing. They've been able to pull big crowds in. They really do a good job of getting people interested in the game and coming in. They kind of feel like a club that the Bears could aspire to. I know they've got a bit of an advantage in terms of being closer to that Heartlands area, but in terms of how they approach it, there's something really aspirational there I think the Bears could look towards.
Yeah, and they've done it the right way. They've built, over the period of last year, you could tell they were building slowly. They've brought in a few more players this year. So, and as you said, they're making all these moves to get fans into the ground, bring revenue in. They're doing it a really sensible way. The current board and the people behind the club have, by the looks of it, learned the lessons of the past, and they're really building something special there, I think. I mean, to be able to, albeit with quite a large number of Bradford fans, but to be able to pull in over 4,000 fans to a home game in League One is just fantastic. So they've got a real opportunity, but let's hope the Bears can spring a surprise on the weekend. So.
Yeah. Well, that brings us nicely on to predictions time. So my head is saying York will win, but I can't. I'm full of that cup good cheer, and I can't bring myself to go with it as my official prediction on the podcast. So I'm gonna go for a Bears win by just 2 points. Craig, what's your prediction for Sunday?
Yeah, well, I'm still thinking back about the cup game, and there was so many good performances. There was in addition to Ben, there was Lewis Lord had a great game that day, and Jason Bass and Dante Morley Samuels. There was loads of really good performances, and I really hope those guys bring that form into the York game. I'm going to go and say that the Bears actually will surprise York in the early parts of the game and go in very close at half time. If the Bears can get to 60 minutes, I think there's a real opportunity of winning the game. I'm going to just plumb for a draw because I'm not sure which way it's going to go. So that would be a fantastic result for the Bears. York will come down and they'll want to get a good result, but I'm hoping that this cup game will get the Bears lads fired up and give them an opportunity. the Doncaster games behind them now, they can really push on and get a decent result.
Yep. Well, indeed. So make sure you get down to the Butts Park Arena this Sunday, 4th of March, for that game, Coventry Bears against York City Knights. Kick-off is at 3 p.m. And if you're not a season ticket holder, you can pay on the gate. Adults £12, concessions £10, juniors are a £5, and under 12s are completely free. And make sure you bring some spending money with you as well, because I was having a browse in the club shop last Sunday, and there were lots of nice things in there, and I didn't have enough money to buy what I wanted. I'm going to be taking something with me this weekend, though. And also this weekend, something that might be of interest to you. There's a bit of an exciting development taking place at half-time. Nothing on the pitch or anything, but and you may have spotted this in the matchday programme from last Sunday's game. So there's going to be an independent Bears supporters group being set up, and as a way of gauging interest, they're going to be holding a meeting during the interval in the members' bar upstairs at the Butts Park Arena this Sunday. So if you're interested, they're just saying come along to the meeting. But if you can't make the meeting, or you want to perhaps find out more, there's also an email address, which is supporters@coventrybears.co.uk. That's supporters@coventrybears.co.uk if you want to get more info. And all being well, we're going to catch up with the group on Sunday and hopefully bring you an interview on next week's show. But Craig, that's really good, isn't it? I know it's something you've been pondering for a while, is wanting to get a supporters group set up. So the fact that it's happening, another exciting thing for the 20th anniversary season.
Yeah, I've been saying for a while we really could do with a supporters club. There's other teams in the league who've got supporters clubs who do loads of work to bring revenue into the club, but also to organise social events and even things like, it would be brilliant if we could organise people to go to away trips. I know some groups of fans do travel to away games, but particularly for games like the Bradford away game, it would be great if we could organise people going to that game as a group, and it's definitely needed. I mean, as I said, there's groups like North Wales Crusaders have a really good supporters group who really help. They are an independent supporters group but help out the club, and it would be really, really good if that could get off the ground. So. Yeah, a really fantastic idea, and one which I really welcome.
Yeah, and very much looking forward to finding out more and hopefully bringing you guys a story on next week's show. And of course, we will be back next week, not only with that, but we'll also bring you all the reaction from the York game, more of your questions for Mr. C, so do send them to us if you've got some, and we'll put whatever else we can find in there as well. So make sure you use the contact form at covbearspodcast.com to send us those questions for Mr. C and to enter our competition to win the signed Challenge Cup match ball from last Sunday. Follow us on Twitter where we're at Cov Bears Podcast, and you can also tweet us your questions there. And hey, tell a friend about the show. It all helps, as was leaving a rating or a review in the Apple Podcasts app if you fancy that as well. But that's it for another show. Craig, I'll see you back at the Butts for another round on Sunday. And see you then.
Thank you, Dave.